like I was planning on, I mean, I just, crap, you know?
I, Chair Habenicht, call the July 13th, 2021 Water and Sewer Board meeting to order. Do a quick roll call here at this time. After I say your name, please answer with present. And let's see, Caitlin Mercer.
Present.
Don Roth.
Present.
Drivis Ridley.
Present.
Don Moore.
Present.
Ty Bereski, right?
Yep, present.
Mayor Linda Olson.
She's one of the council members that are currently not here.
Okay, that we got that out. Yeah. Council member Cheryl Wink.
Oh, here comes Linda Olson. I'm putting her in the chat right now.
There's Angela. Oh, there's Mayor Olson.
You go and pay
Here.
attention so that you look like you're listening.
And Cheryl Wink.
She hasn't joined us yet.
And Joe Anderson.
Here.
Okay. Well, we have plenty for a quorum. Thank you. Let's go on to the rest of our business, welcoming our new board members. Drivis Ridley, who's been with us for a while already, but she is now officially a board member. Let's see, her regular board membership is from July 1st through August 2024. And Ty Brzezinski appointed to the regular board on July 1st, and his term will be extended through February 13th or February 1st, 2023. And welcome aboard all. Thank you for, let's see, the next order of business is welcoming new staff. Director Van Ry, would you like to introduce Sarah Stone?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So tonight I have, actually for the benefit of new board members as well, we can introduce all staff on the call as well. So I'll start with, I'm Pieter Van Ry, I'm the Director of Utilities in South Platte Renew for the City of Englewood. Utilities is half my job, the other half of my job is South Platte Renew, which is the joint venture wastewater plant between Littleton and Englewood. Additionally, on the call tonight, I'll have, maybe we'll go in the order and then save Sarah for last. So Brenda, if you want to go first.
Okay. Hi, I'm Brenda Varner, and I am the business support specialist for the utility department. And I'm also the staff liaison for the Water and Sewer Board. I've been with utilities for less than a year, and I have been working with Pieter over at South Platte Renew for the last 6 years.
Okay. I've actually only been at South Platte Renew for 3 years, so she was with someone else before that. Okay, Steve, you want to go next?
Peter, I am Steve Simon. I'm the Engineering Deputy Director for the City of Englewood. I've been here just over a year now, and prior to that, I spent some time at Aurora Water for about 5 years and about 11 years at a public utility in California.
All right, thanks, Steve. Angela?
Hi, I'm Angela Goodman. I'm the Deputy Director for Operation and Maintenance. I actually, let's see, I just got off probation, I think a week ago, so yay. Been here a year, and prior to that, I spent about 10 years with Aurora Water, partially in the project management world, and then 3 in operations. And before that, I was a consultant doing mainly pipeline design for about a dozen years before I joined the government side.
Great, thank you, Angela. Well, and I'm excited tonight to introduce Sarah Stone, who is our newest member of the leadership team for utilities. So Sarah is now our business solutions or business services deputy director, and this is an area where there has been a gap since I took over as director in March of last year. And really, as we've moved through rates and fees, and we've really dug into a lot of the financial planning requirements and the financial needs of the utility, it became evident that skill set and leadership in this area was an important thing that will allow our utility to move forward with a really sound financial footing and with the amount of capital needs that we have and the ways to finance that capital, whether it be through cash and debt and also rates and fees. We're fortunate enough to have hired Sarah. And Sarah, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background. You're on mute.
Okay, I heard there was bad feedback. Can you hear me okay now?
We can.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Peter. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I joined City of Inglewood about 4 weeks ago. This is the beginning of my 4th week. Prior to that, I was with Dominion Water and Sanitation District, a much smaller district just south of here that serves the Sterling Ranch development, where I held a similar position, and I was the business manager. Before that, I spent 15 years in engineering consultant, where I did engineering work for the first half of that, and then got my MBA and started rates and fees consulting as well as financial planning for utility customers. So happy to be here.
Well, and so this is our rounded out leadership team for the utility moving forward. And like I said, I'm really excited to have all the main areas covered with leadership. And I really think that now we can get firing on all cylinders as we move forward. And if you've noticed, I've been able to recruit some pretty talented people from some of our adjacent utilities. So that's been I'm a little proud of that, because we're stealing from Aurora and other districts to the south. So that feels like we're building we're taking all the all-stars from their organizations and assembling them here.
Welcome aboard all.
Thank you.
Let's see, next order of business is approval of the meeting minutes of the June 8th Water and Sewer Board meeting. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to be made to that? Okay, hearing none. Can I get a moment to, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Meeting has been, or it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Having none, the minutes are approved. And we go on to the next order of business is public comment. And I do not believe we have any public to comment. Is that correct?
That is correct. No public
Okay.
comment at this time.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the next order of business. Okay, as acting chair, I will attempt to facilitate the election of a new chair for the Water and Sewer Board with Director Van Ry's assistance.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. So we are at the, obviously our chair, Chair Wiggins had to resign last month, and we wanted to wait until we got the board fully assembled before we went forward with electing a new chair and a new vice chair. According to the process, this actually should be happening for the Water and Sewer Board every 2 years. And so it's a good time for us to be making this election. So the first step is to open the floor to any interested board members. So I think Vice Chair Habenicht, if you wanted to do that, and then if there's interested parties, they can voice their desire to be the chair.
Or do we have any board members who would like to speak? We need a chair.
Don't all jump in at once.
I nominate Chuck to stay in the role.
Uh,
I was just going to nominate John to go in the role. All right.
I would nominate John to go in the role too. Yeah, I'm going to have to bow out from being chair. I'm having some medical problems that I need to get solved here, and maybe in the next few months it might be just fine to be chair, but currently I would prefer not to take on that role.
How about I offer to be your vice chair and I'll fill in anytime you need me to? How does that work?
Oh,
Or it
okay.
could go the other way.
Yeah, it could go the other way. I don't mind being vice chair, stepping in every now and then, but John, would you?
If you guys would really like me to, I will do it.
I would really.
I've only got less than 4 years left though, so this is like jumping in at the very end.
It's a 2-year term. What are you worried about?
But just whatever. No, I'm happy to do that if you guys would prefer that I do.
We have.
Hey, if there's no more discussion on this, you can move to a vote on this, Vice Chair Habenicht.
Yes, I was hearing none. We'll go ahead and ask for acceptance of the new chair, John Moore. Do we have a vote? Do we need to go down a list, or can we just say aye and nay?
Nay.
What you could do is you could offer up the slate of John Moore as chair and Chuck Habenicht as vice chair, and then vote on that slate.
And if we could vote on that slate, okay, that is what we will do. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those who oppose? And the ayes have it.
Can we get an official motion though? I need a motion for the minutes. That would be wonderful if somebody could make a motion and we can get a second.
I'll move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any nays on that? Okay, all in favor say aye. We've done that. The next item on the agenda. When does John Moore's job start? Right now?
My first order of business is to ask the vice chair to continue to lead the meeting.
Okay.
You have my full confidence.
I will stumble through it as well as I can. Okay. Let's see, we've done the winners. We've done that. We've done that. We've done that. New business. Motion. Okay. The next item is back to the. Okay, the motion. Director Van Ry was, are you speaking on behalf of Martin and Wood?
So, so 7B, Chair, would be the next item, and that would be actually presented by Deputy Director Steve Simon.
Okay. Steve?
Thank you, Chair. And I will go ahead and share my screen. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. This next item before the board is a renewal of professional services agreement for water resources support. Water resources support is a broad topic that covers a variety of critical functions to our raw water supply for Englewood. For existing supplies, that takes a complete understanding of Englewood's water rights portfolio. And it consists of continuous monitoring of water court proceedings, which there's a vast amount of water court proceedings that go on throughout the state. So it's really important that we have someone continuously keeping eyes on that to make sure that none of these proceedings negatively impact the city. It also includes legal and engineering support for agreements with our regional partners like Denver Water and Centennial Water and Sanitation District, as well as important planning needs for our future. Contracting external water resources support is common in the Front Range because of the competitive nature of our water supply and the deep understanding that's necessary not only for an organization's water rights portfolio, but also, again, making sure that they're well connected with the water court proceedings and monitoring those. As you can imagine, it's a very complex system out here, so it does require a high level of expertise in Colorado water law. We actually see that competition, or the competition for those water rights elevating as we move forward, not only because of the increase of demand on the system, but the availability of traditional supplies as we see those changing with changing climates. So again, engineering and legal support is important for protection of existing water rights, supporting the development of operations and capital improvement plans to optimize our yield for those rights, and planning for future raw water needs. The two renewals before the board are for Berg Hill Greenleaf Rascuti, who's our legal support, and Martin Wood, who is our engineering support. Both of these firms have a long history with the city dating back to the 1990s. So again, they have a very vast and deep understanding of our water rights portfolio. They also have a strong presence in water law and engineering, and again, the necessary resources to monitor the water court proceedings that occur throughout the year. As far as work planned for our upcoming year, we intend to, or will be completing our ongoing raw water master plan, which is going to set not only the future demands of our system, but also the capital improvement projects we'll need to meet those demands, and potentially any acquisitions that we might want to consider to meet those demands. It's also developing a really important yield model to help predict what our yield is going to be based on our historic water usage and historic climate. And again, it'll develop a capital improvement plan with the intention to optimize our portfolio and improve our water quality. In addition to those standalone items, which we will be concluding here shortly, it does include our ongoing and recurring efforts related to our water court monitoring. In 2019, the city actually established its first formal agreement with both Martin and Wood and Berg Hill. These initial contracts were for $600,000 and $400,000. Last year's renewal that was brought forth to this board reduced those to $400,000 for Berg Hill, our legal support, and $300,000 for Martin and Wood, who does our water rights engineering. What we found over last year's work and the remaining work to be completed on the raw water master plan and some demand forecasting is that it landed about $350,000. So that is the renewal amount that's for the board's consideration. And again, that one-off work will be concluding, and then we would expect to see following that leveling off of our annual renewal contracts. So that concludes my presentation, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Chair, if I may, I'd like to add one more thing to this. If you notice in Steve's presentation, these contracts, we just started to establish these formalized contracts last year. So prior to that, it was just an ongoing on-call service without a formal process by which we established that. So we wanted to get that in place last year so that there's a documented process by which we maintain a connection to these two consultants that we spend a fair amount of money with and have had a long-term relationship with. The second modification that we're likely looking to make is, if you noticed, it's a July to July timeframe, which is awkward from a budgeting perspective. And so we end up budgeting part in one year and part in the next year. And what we'll likely try to do probably this year is get it so that we'll end this contract early at the end of the year, and then put in place a new annual contract that starts at the beginning of the year, so it follows the budget year and it'll just be easier to track. So that's a further modification that we anticipate to this process to help get it streamlined and in a place that it makes more sense and is easier to budget for. So that's one thing. You don't see that today, but that's our plan as we move into the fall.
I lost my mouse. Was there any other discussion that the water board would want to have concerning these two matters? Back in the 70s, I took a course in Western water law. And I can tell you it's one of the most complex things that's ever existed, I think. And both Martin and Wood and Berg Hill Greenleaf have served Englewood so well over the decades that we've dealt with them. And I highly support them. So let's see, do we need to have two separate?
I would recommend that. It's two separate contracts, so I think two separate motions would make sense.
So the first one would be the Martin and Wood, and do I need to?
I'll make the motion to recommend City Council approve a contract with Martin and Wood for $350,000.
I'll second.
Good. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Was there a comment? No. All opposed? No, none. Let it be the record show that the Martin Wood have been chosen by our board and it has been moved on to City Council. The second item is the Berg Hill and Greenleaf. And do we have any suggestions? Anyone who wants to speak on that? Hearing none, I will ask for approval of Berg Hill and Greenleaf's contract with the city of Englewood. And do we have, let's see, we need a motion to accept this?
Yeah, Chuck, this is John. I'll make a motion
Okay.
to recommend City Council approve a PSA with Berg Hill Greenleaf in the amount of 400,000 for their legal support of the city's water resources.
Very good, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
That was Don.
Doesn't matter. I
I'll
think
just,
Jevis beat him,
sorry.
but
Oh, that's okay. You want to fight it out?
no.
No. Let it be shown that, yes, John?
I was going to say, just a little for discussion, supporting the comments about the support we've had over the years. One of the stories I remember from years ago on this was, I mean, the water rights are such a defensive thing that we have to do, constantly monitoring. And I think the example was the city of Thornton was going to move their discharge further up the river or something like that. And it got in front of a water right that we had between where they had been discharging, where they were going to discharge. I might have the ordering reversed, but our attorneys got involved to protect that water right. I think negotiated with Thornton to allow them to, simply change where they were discharging in the river. And that to me was one of the real lessons in terms of the necessity of having a good, understanding this complex water law and having a good defense at all times to protect the rights that we have. And I do, that can only get tighter and tighter as the population grows and drought and all that issue. So I just want to add that little story. That's always what made it really stand out to me, the importance of both the legal and engineering support that we've had from these groups.
Chair, I have a question. It's really just a technical question, maybe for Peter. Do the dates on the agreements change once you bring them before council? Because this one says the 13th, which is today, but then when this comes before us, will it change to the date that we make our decision to finally?
Yeah, we'll change that to the date of the approval. So the council approves the contract, so we'll update that date when we bring it before council, which I believe is on the 19th.
I think so too. I just know that sometimes those get missed, and then we're wondering if this got passed started before we were approving it. I do have a question though about this one. Did we look at other options? This has been a long-standing renewal. We've done this a lot, and actually on both. What were were there any competing ones, or will there be a time where we go out for competition on this?
So right now we didn't see that it was over the last year and a half, what we felt was the best thing to do was to rein in their scope. And that's partly, and it's not that Berg Hill and Martin Wood did anything wrong. It's just they were there defending and protecting the city's water rights portfolio without a lot of staff direction in terms of what to prioritize on and what to focus on. That has changed in the last year and a half, where we've gotten a lot more involved in helping direct their activities and direct their work. And what that does is that has reined in these contracts to some degree. So that's why you see the legal contract go from 600,000 down to 400. I think last year we spent about 350. So we've cut them almost in half. And a lot of that's because we've given them better direction. Plus we have developed some of that we're developing that expertise in-house so that we don't have to rely so heavily on the contract. The challenge with going out for new contracts with these types of with these two specific providers is there's only so many on the front range. And it's like, once you pick your team, it's like you stay with your team, because they have all your background. They have all the years of understanding of how a settlement was derived and what went into the negotiation. They have an understanding of the portfolio. Right now, I think we're actively in, I don't know how many cases, we are actively in dozens of cases that we're either an objector or we're a party to. And so it's hard to switch. It's hard to switch your team. I think when entities typically do that is, one, if there's a massive turnover in that organization, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that's gone, and the value of that institutional knowledge is no longer there. So there's not really that reason to optimal source with them. Two is if they start doing a bad job. I think in our instance, Berg Hill and Martin and Wood have both responded well to our providing much more direction on this. And so I wouldn't recommend seeking new providers as it relates to water rights engineering, water rights legal, but it's something that's always out there that we could evaluate. I think we have so many moving parts right now. It would create another thing that we'd have to get up to speed on, and I don't know if that would be the best way to move forward.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I just know that you might have some council members that are going to ask that, and I wanted to hear first what you would say. I also think that we've had a huge change in our litigation, so that when we settled with Denver on the major stuff, that they really didn't have as much to do anymore either. So I'm very thankful for how you've whittled this down over the last few years, because John, you probably remember during your time, was much, much, much higher. And our council packets, when we used to get paper packets on confidential things on lawyers, it was mostly water law, and they were huge packets we would get. And that's just kind of stopped. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I think there was like a mutual agreement to stop fighting each other between Englewood and Denver. And I think it's not I don't know, it's an official agreement, but that approach
settled the case, one
yeah.
of the cases. So yeah.
Yeah, and not only that specific case that was settled, and that's the one that resulted in the 600,000 that we have for the Dry Creek, but just more of the general approach of, instead of fighting each other, working somewhat more together. And I've had a conversation with the head of Denver Water, Jim Lockhead, to talk about our desire to maintain a positive working relationship moving forward, as opposed to being adversarial on everything.
Yeah, that's great. I still hear things about Denver and Englewood at each other's throats, and I try to dispel that, but I'm glad to hear you're speaking to Lockhead. I'm for this.
Okay, we have, let's see, recommendation that the city council approve by motion a professional services agreement with Bird Hill Greenleaf Rossetti LLP in the amount of $400,000 to provide legal representation supported the city water resource management. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Let the record show that all that that they were all ayes. Martin and Wood.
We've already done that one, Chair.
We just did that. That's
Yeah.
right. We just did Martin and Wood. Okay, so
We're on to 7D.
Taste testing.
yes, yes.
I'll be presenting this one, so if you'd like, I can start that.
I don't know. I am a native of the area. I grew up in South Denver, and everybody said Englewood water was terrible. And then I moved to Denver. Then I moved to Englewood, South Englewood here, when I was in college, and I've been here ever since. And I like our water, except for its hardness. That's my only gripe. Other people in the city, apparently, those out north, tend to not like the taste, and so there are problems. But hardness is my big gripe. But
Well, I have a presentation tonight, and I can talk to you a little bit about our strategy that we have around those.
Please proceed.
So let me share my screen. Let me make sure I got the right one. Okay, can everybody see that? Is that a thumbs up? Can everybody see?
That's,
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, perfect. So, so Chair or Vice Chair Habenicht, I've lived in Englewood for a little over 2 years. I drink the water out of my refrigerator every day. I actually like it. However, I know that there are times that there can be. I think I talked about this last summer. I said that it can be summery is the way we described it, and I think that has somewhat to do with where we draw the water from and things like that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is just some of the work that we're looking at to try and address that. Because while there are some of us who don't experience nearly as significant an issue with the water, there are other customers who definitely experience an issue with the water, and so that means there is something that we should be looking at here. The first thing, we're taking a three-pronged approach at this, and what we're trying to do is work within what we have without changing what we have, without spending money, to see if that has an effect first. And then as we make those modifications and optimizations, we can then look to supplement that with any amount of capital capital investment that we can. And so if you look at the drawing here, you can see where the Platte River is and some of our major infrastructure assets. And the city ditch is the most foremost. That's in the red. And so what we're looking at is, right now we typically pull water from city ditch from generally about April to November, and that matches up with generally the irrigation season. Well, we have rights that allow us to pull water almost year round. And the issue with that is, right now there's sections of city ditch between South Platte, or between Chatfield Reservoir and the Elm Plant, that are still open channel. So a lot of it is piped. However, there's still, I think it's about 2.5 miles of ditch reach that is not piped. And so that limits our ability to flow water in the winter. The reason why we're thinking we want to do this is because what we're experiencing is that water, really that short distance from Chatfield Reservoir to Union Ave pump station, there's a significant influence on the South Platte that we think gets somewhat picked up in the raw water quality. So if we're pulling a lot of water from Union Ave pump station, and especially if the Platte is really low in the summer like it was last summer, we can tend to experience that those contaminants in the water get concentrated, which means we have to do more treatment, and sometimes that taste and odor effect will bleed through. When we're pulling from city ditch, that water just has less influence from the South Platte. It's essentially at the base of Chatfield Reservoir. So we believe that raw water will be easier to treat and will, in the long run, allow us to mitigate some of those issues. We've done some anecdotal testing on this, and it seems as though there is a correlation between water pulled from Chatfield along city ditch versus pulled from Union Ave pump station. Well, we're following up on that anecdotal information with actual testing. And so we're doing sampling along the river. We're doing sampling to understand what the constituents of the raw water is, to be able to have defensible data to help inform when, where, and how we may change the regime of how we pull our raw water supply. So that's the first thing. The second piece is our distribution system. And if you know our distribution system, it was installed 70 plus years ago. And there's two main tanks. There's two main elevated tanks that create that constant pressure for the system as a whole. And then we have some other pump stations that supply, they're booster stations that supply other parts of the community. And we think that there are ways that we can move water through our distribution system and move water through those tanks that can help with the residual, our chloramine residual, and the taste and odor that can result from water becoming what's called stale in the pipes or in the tanks. The first step to doing that is creating a digital model of our system, which we have. We developed a skeletonized model as part of the master planning effort, which is basically the major pipes and the major tanks and things like that. Well, our in-house staff, Mike Asante specifically, one of our new engineers, took that skeletonized model and completed it out so we have a complete model of our system. What we can do with that model now is we can run scenarios of demands through our system, whether it's through the summer or the winter, and see how water flows through our system and figure out places where maybe water is sitting for a long period of time, or where tanks aren't turning over as fast as we'd like them to help. The key is to keep moving water through the system and not letting it get stale. Another piece of this is dead end lines. We have a number of dead end lines that are still throughout the system. In some cases, we can loop those lines and get them to so they are no longer dead end. In other instances, it may be too hard to loop them, at which point we can put in a protocol. We can stick a fire hydrant at the end of the line, and we can institute a flushing protocol and have a periodic flushing of points of the system to draw that water out systematically so that it doesn't sit there for long periods of time. So we think that with this model and really starting to dive in on how we operate the distribution system, we can also have a positive effect. The last piece of this is capital improvements. And some of those examples that we have here are, I'll start with the most significant, which is to the right, which is the city ditch. So we think piping the city ditch is an important priority that we should follow through on. We actually found an agreement that was signed in, I believe it was 2006, between the city of Littleton and the city of Englewood, when Littleton was looking to put a historic designation on the ditch and keep it open channel. And in that agreement signed 15 years ago, it explicitly says the city of Englewood intends to pipe the entire length of the ditch someday and will oppose any historic designation. And so this is a concept that's been out there for several years. And in reality, with so much of the ditch being piped as it is right now, really what we're doing is we're just completing out that piping. So that's a pretty significant capital investment to put that piping in. However, we think it's a priority that we should focus on. What it does is it eliminates stormwater getting into the ditch. It eliminates the possibility, it reduces the possibility of whether it's accidental or intentional contamination of our water supply. It also allows us to run it year round. And so instead of being down for 6 months, we may only need to have the ditch down for a week, at which point we can really capitalize on that water at Chatfield as opposed to relying so much on the Union Ave. Union Ave will still be important as a redundant system, and there will be times when we want to pull water from there. However, we think that this is an important step. With this process, there's a reach of ditch that goes around a pond that's just west, or it's just east of where, you know, where Angelo's is, or the Brett Brewery. It's on the east side of Santa Fe. There's a pond that sits in there, and the ditch basically wraps around it. And one of the owners that backs up to that pond, last year we discovered put an illegal connection onto the ditch and basically dug the embankment out and then stuck a pipe in. We raised that to his attention, and subsequently have not gotten a lot of progress in getting that remedied. When we go back and look at our agreements, there is nothing in our agreements that prohibit us from putting that ditch all the way, or piping that ditch all the way through there and removing any of those access points to that pond. However, when we do this, we anticipate that there will probably be some pushback from the public who has gotten used to that ditch behind their property. And it becomes a balance of, is that water feature behind my house that's really owned by the citizens of Englewood more important than improving the source water quality and the source water for the city of Englewood? And that's really what it comes down to. Is yes, it's never great when something you're used to behind your house goes away. However, it's one of those situations where, it's like someone buying a house that looks like it's open space, but it's all zoned to be developed someday in the future. So there's you hope it stays open space, but someone could come in and build a bunch of houses and you have really no recourse. So I think it's somewhat of a similar situation here. And we anticipate that once we start down this path, we'll probably be getting some pushback. The other things you can see there are some chemical feed improvements and some North Reservoir optimization improvements. And the last thing is softening. And so we want to the source water we think will help reduce the hardness. And then ultimately, whatever we think that optimized source water looks like, then we can put in install softening, which was contemplated in the master plan. And we think that will have a positive effect as well. So in summary, this is the general timeline. We'd like to get a lot of this executed in the next 3 years so that our customers really see a positive effect from these investments and a direct result of the increases that we put forth last year. So we put in that capital investment fee. We want to show a result that they can say, yes, I understand where my $15 a month is going. So really 21 is analysis, optimization, and concepts. 2022 is more optimization of the distribution system, detailed design and into construction. And then we'll continue our optimization as the construction is executed. And then ultimately, by 2023, ideally beginning a number of these significant capital projects, either well on their way or to the point of being completed. This also times with the WIFIA funding, where we have that additional debt funding to be able to fund this kind of work. These projects are included in that application. And so really, I just wanted to sit down with the board tonight and give you a sense for the strategy that we're working on in terms of a more near-term strategy to address those issues which have somewhat plagued our community in one way or another for the past, from what I understand, for the past several decades. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
I remember every spring the flushing of fire hydrants all over the city. Every one of them was flushed. And I'm seeing very little of that happening. And is it because I'm on the wrong end of town?
No, we actually still do that. We do that in April, and we did that this April where we'll flush the system. One of the things that we're looking at is what's called unidirectional flushing. So it's not necessarily opening up every fire hydrant, but it's looking at using that model to move water through in a more systematic way. Additionally, one of the things that we're looking at is once a year might not be often enough. There might be other parts of the city system where we want to do it 2 times a year, or maybe we want to do it quarterly. And so that, again, is part of that optimization of the distribution system.
I have a quick question for you. Are you guys at all concerned that with an increased use of in-home water softeners and RO systems continuing to grow? Is that something that is worrying at all? Or are you hoping that this will kind of cut that off?
Well, ideally, what we would hope is that it would get to the point where people didn't feel the need to actually have to install those systems. Additionally, we don't know to what degree what hardness we'll target in terms of what's the level of hardness that we'd want to bring the water down to. And so those people who have invested in those systems could use that system as a final polishing for their water if they wanted to. And instead of replacing their filters every 3 months, they may have filters that will last for a year. So it is something that people do as it relates to trying to address the water hardness today. And I understand why people do that. We want to look at, is there a capital investment that we can make at the water plant to help knock that down significantly? And then if community members want to take it a little bit further than that, then they can use those systems.
Thank you. Yeah, I know the RO systems can be pretty wasteful, so I wasn't sure if you're concerned about, you know, more of them getting installed if you didn't do anything.
Well, I think we would see more of those continuing to be installed because of that, because the hardness is a real issue. It's something that does affect people's appliances and does affect their systems. And so we think we can do something about that. We'll see as we get down this path. But if there's a cost-effective way to really have an effect on that, we'd like to move forward on that.
You know, Peter, your predecessor had mentioned a number of years ago that the Big Dry Creek diversion might have an effect on that. And I guess we're still waiting on the Big Dry Creek diversion.
That's correct. The Big Dry Creek diversion project, I will say, is from a project execution perspective, is not how we would recommend to execute capital projects. It's been a project that's been out there for, I believe, 4 years now, and there is an effect we believe that there is not only effect from on hardness when there's a flushing storm that comes down Big Dry Creek, but also the naturally occurring radioactive material. So there's a reduction in that as well. And so the Big Dry Creek is still a critical part of our system, and it's a redundancy and a resiliency piece of our system. At the same time, we think if we can move the diversion of the bulk of our raw water up to where we can at Chatfield, and we have the ability to divert there. We're not actually moving the diversion from a water rights perspective. We actually have that ability. We think that only further improves that more than what the Big Dry Creek project does on its own. The Big Dry Creek project is effective for that targeted area, but as it relates to our total water system, we think that this will also benefit. Mayor, I see you have your hand up as well.
I do. Thank you. I was wondering if this doesn't work, what would the next step be? I know for Chuck, you're one of those lucky ones who doesn't have the taste. It doesn't bother me as much as it does people in parts of District 2, but it's the most common thing I hear from restaurants, and that they cannot get, I mean, water quality taste affects the way that you cook and bake, and they're very aware of it. Making coffee is difficult. So what is the next step? And is there any way to look at some of those places that complain the most to see if there's something in their area where more flushing could happen or something else?
Yeah, that's actually the next step that we have as it relates to the sampling. So the next step is we're going to sample within the distribution system. And so that'll give us an idea of where we're seeing maybe more pockets of hardness versus less hardness, or if there's other taste and odor constituents that we might be looking for. So that's really the next phase in this first analysis. And really we'll put together a set of strategies that ideally this set of strategies will have an effect. And if they're not having the effect that we're expecting, we're not going to recommend a significant capital investment if we can't reasonably conclude that it'll have an effect. At which point, then I think we somewhat go back to the drawing board in terms of the data that we have and look to see what other technologies are out there. Maybe it is a more accelerated, targeted replacement of pipes. This could also be an issue of people's internal plumbing on their house. So there might be a more of an outreach program as it relates to plumbing from a home perspective. But those are variables that we don't know the answer to right now. We're starting with where we think we could have an effect based on what we know, and then as we develop more information, we'll keep working on this till we crack this nut.
Have you noticed if homes that complain have galvanized pipes or not? I mean, when we first moved into our first home in Englewood, there's galvanized pipes, and I couldn't believe people lived there, because when you cut a pipe open, you'd see it had almost no room for water to go through. And the same thing with the house we're in now. We had to have the whole house replumbed. And I don't know, I bet a lot of the homes are like this in this area. And I wonder if I don't know if that makes it worse or if it doesn't matter at all, but.
I don't think it helps. I don't know the degree to what, that's the thing, is we don't know how much of an effect it has yet. I think it's something that as we do this will tie to our lead service line survey that we'll be initiating, is if we're in that process, when we're doing that, we can add another data collection piece to internal home plumbing. I know for my house, for example, I had one piece of galvanized pipe that was left that was to the hose spigot, and I finally replaced it, and the rest of it at some point had been replaced with copper. And so I think it's something that it is something that we don't necessarily know the effect, but it could potentially have an effect. And so as we're gathering data, we can help maybe draw a correlation. So if we're seeing a lot of galvanized pipe and then we're seeing these real issues, that might help us help elucidate some kind of an issue.
Yeah. Great, thanks.
Are there any other comments? If not, we thank you for the presentation there. Old business, staff's choice.
Yeah, we have a few items on staff's choice, just some quick updates that we'd like to provide to the board. And so Angela and Steve will be handling the first few of these, and then the last one I'll handle.
Thanks, Peter. I'll take a report on our recent completion of our remote switchgear operation. So this was a really important project from a safety standard, and that picture on the left is the interior of our remote switchgear building, and that's where all of the plant feed comes in. And each of those units you see on the left there are like the breaker in your house, where after a power outage, these would actually open. And so staff would have to go and physically close them all. Well, the difference between this unit and what's at your house is this is a heavily loaded, electrically loaded area, and it actually puts staff in an arc flash hazard zone, a zone which there actually isn't adequate PPE to allow a physical interface with this. So what this project entailed was installing a remote system. And so that picture on the right is on the outside of the building. And each of those switches you see on that picture on the right corresponds to one of those breakers that's on the left in the inside the building. And so now, whenever a break happens, we can have staff reset those switches from the exterior of the building, and remove any safety hazard that existed with staff interfacing directly.
So way back when we did the master plan, this was one of the things that made me nervous, and so we've fixed it. It's nice to start to check some of these things off.
Makes me nervous just hearing about it.
When you hear there's no PPE that's strong enough to protect people when they turn these back on, it really was an exposure that we're glad we got remedied. It's a good health and safety thing for our staff.
That is frightening.
Okay, the next issue is summertime water demand. This is just a quick update from Angela in terms of what we're seeing from demands.
Yeah, and this is super quick. I don't have any fun pictures, but just wanted to let you guys know we've been running between 12.5 and 13.5 million gallons per day. So we've been hitting some pretty high peaks since we got the hot spell in June, and it's been pretty consistent. So if you weren't convinced already, it's definitely summertime. People are using more water, watering their grass, and we're keeping up. Treatment's good. The recent project that we did with the granular activated carbon filter media replacement has helped treatment significantly. So that's been a good thing to realize after we did that replacement. It made quite a difference.
So this is higher. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say just somewhat related question is, what impacts do we have specific concerns about the drought in the West and the impacts? I mean, I remember there was a point several years ago that there could potentially have been impacts on us, even though you wouldn't have thought that our water rights were such that that'd be a problem, but that there comes a point where things get so bad downstream that it can affect us back on the Front Range. But I was curious of how that fits into this as well.
Yeah, so right now, the issues that you're seeing on the news are affecting the lower basin states. And interestingly enough, the outside counsel for South Platte Renew, David Robbins, has worked on the Colorado River, and he's an advisor to the governor on the Colorado River. So he's paid attention to this. And right now it hasn't translated up to the upper basin states yet. However, if it does translate to the upper basin states, we right now don't expect a significant effect on us. However, we are tied to Denver's system, which means there could be potentially some kind of a reduction across the board. We only have one small basin diversion. That's our Boreas Pass rights. And it doesn't yield a lot. It only yields potentially a couple hundred acre feet at most. But right now, we don't necessarily see an issue for us. 5 years from now, if it persists like this and the lower basin states really run out of water, then that could potentially translate into the upper basin states as it relates to the average yield that we're supposed to provide to the lower basin states, I believe at Lee's Ferry. And it's something that's in our water resources master plan, what Steve was talking about, that Martin and Wood is working on. So one of the things that we look at scenarios, and one of the scenarios is a drought scenario. And even though our water rights in wet years may look like we have more than enough water rights, if you look at how those water rights can be used and it's a dry year, then we'd be tapping into some of these other water rights that we maybe historically haven't used as regularly. And that's where understanding the yield of our system compared to potential drought scenarios will help us shape our approach as it relates to raw water acquisition and raw water supply.
Very good. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you, Angela. Okay, next, just a quick update from Steve on our flat rate to metered service conversion. I know, Mayor, this is something that you've been interested in, so we are working on it, and we have a plan.
Thanks, Peter. So as Peter mentioned, we are working on an implementation program for converting our remaining flat rate customers to metered service. We have just over 1,200 remaining flat rate customers. That's about 10% of our customer base, which is high, much higher than our neighboring communities. So certainly an issue that we want to address. It's an important issue. City code does require a meter installation whenever ownership changes hands or whenever a property usage changes. So we've slowly been converting based on that policy, but at that rate, it's going to take many, many years for us to convert. City code also has a policy that it provides the authorization of the city to require a conversion to metered service if it's deemed in the best interest of the city. And I think that's the really important clause that that provides the ability to do so. And some of those benefits would be identifying water leaks without a meter, or knowing how much water a property is using. We have no idea if there's a water leak. We can better understand water loss in our system and make improvements where, with that information, identify where water loss is occurring and make improvements to address that. It does promote efficient water use through a financial incentive to use less water. And for a certain set of our customers, we believe it's actually going to reduce their water bill. So benefits both on the customer side and on the city side. So again, we are working on an implementation plan for conversion, working out the details of what funding and execution of that program would look like, and intend to bring that program back to the board as an information item in August.
One of the complicating factors of this is the lead service line. So part of it is if we put a meter in, then what do we do with the lead service line? How do we pay for the piece that is from the pipe to the meter, and then ultimately the piece from the meter to the house is the homeowners, and so how do we help people fund that? And so these are the details of a program that we're working out that we ultimately will bring back to the board as well as council to get this initiated and kicked off and move away from the wait for it to change ownership to ideally in the next 3 years, get to the point where we have no more flat rates and we're all on meters.
How do I get on the list?
We can get you on the list.
I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah, there is a voluntary approach. So if someone from voluntarily wants to move, they can just call us up, and then the homeowner pays for the meter and we'll do the installation.
It's really smart to do.
Yeah, I've been waiting for it. I thought it was just going to be coming on, and
I wonder if a lot of people think that, Peter.
It's possible, or they don't think about it. I mean, that's another thing. They just pay their water bill and don't think about it. One of the thoughts that we had was, so some people I think want to do this and maybe don't realize it, and other people don't want to do this.
Right.
And so what we've talked about doing is potentially setting something up where for a year, there's an incentive that's built into signing up to get your meter replaced. So if you sign up and get on the list in that year and you put your deposit down, then you'll get more of it paid for than if we get to a point where we have to require the remaining people to convert. These are some of the concepts that we're trying to work out to prioritize. So if we have 800 people that say, I want a meter immediately, we can't install 800 all at once. However, if we can build in incentive and disincentive, we think maybe we'll be able to put together a program that's fair and also something that homeowners can afford, because if they have to replace their lead service line, that's an additional cost that maybe they're not factoring in.
Peter, do you have examples of homes that could be used as, not identifying the homeowner, but of where they have saved and how it's impacted their water use? Because I think that would motivate people too, that kind of information in the pipeline. Yeah,
when we were doing the rate and fee analysis last year, we looked at a typical home. We looked at a typical user and then looked at the flat rate rates, and we did an estimate. And if everybody, we have to anticipate that if everybody converts to meters, that we'll actually have a reduction in revenue of, I believe, is around $250,000. So we can find this data for people who are more recent converts to show that there is a savings. That's something that Sarah and Jennifer Walker could potentially bring forward.
Well, quite frankly, that was the reason why it wasn't being done. I had several conversations with past staff that they are afraid to see the revenue go down.
And we factored that in to our long-range financial planning.
That's good.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, we have two more. I know we're a little bit over on time. We have if everybody's okay, we've got two more quick updates, and then we'll let you all out of here. City ditch repair, we had some work that was done, and is this Steve or Angela?
It's Angela.
Okay, Angela.
Yeah. So we discovered a leak in our city ditch probably about mid-June, and we worked with engineering to kind of see if we could do some troubleshooting on the leak. We maybe invented this, I'm not quite sure, or we maybe perfected it, but we call them bentonite burritos. And so when there's a hole in the pipe, we would take a piece of plastic and wrap it around some bentonite, or actually a piece of paper, and you'd wrap it around bentonite, and then you'd kind of shove it into the hole. When it got wet, it would expand. So we tried kind of using the bentonite burritos to help us buy a little bit of time until we were able to fix it. We contacted a couple local contractors and got some sticker shock on how expensive the repair was going to be for this immediate repair that we needed. And we decided to look at using our distribution and collection folks that crew to repair it. And the price was right with them. We completed the repair within about 2.5 days after we started. And here's a good picture for putting in the pipe. That pipe is actually 48 inches in diameter. So I think it looks a little small in that picture, but we were able to install about 4 sticks of pipe. If you guys are familiar with the old sod farm that's kind of located across the street from McClellan Reservoir, so not too terribly far from Chatfield. We were able to get some pizza out of engineering. So it was a great collaboration between the engineering and the O&M division. And we had several significant rain events right after we installed this pipe, and the pipe has been holding up really, really well. So good coordination and good repair.
That is a bentonite pizza you're talking about, or not pizza?
Kind of.
Yeah, burrito.
Okay, thank you, Angela. The last thing I have is really just a quick update. So we've had, ever since COVID hit, we did a shut-off moratorium, and a number of utilities across the nation have since lifted those moratoriums. Ours is still in place. We are actually, what we wanted to do is we wanted to get through the monthly billing conversion and have that stabilized for a few months, and then look at potentially bringing water shutoffs back online as things have recovered. So I just wanted to bring that up to the board, that is something that we are thinking about and considering, and maybe and just open it up for any feedback from the board as it relates to timing of that, or thoughts, or any feedback as we do that.
How many are we not shutting off under right now?
I can get you that number. I don't know exactly what it is. There is an increase, but I think there are people that are sitting out there that are saying, well, they're not going to shut us off. So, you know, the bill just keeps building and gets more into arrears. So we haven't eliminated the charges necessarily, but we are not shutting off. So I can get that data for you and let you know when we've analyzed this, we haven't seen it as a significant exposure from a financial perspective. And so it's not something that made us really, really concerned. I think there are some other utilities across the nation that were really concerned about this being a potential issue. For us, it hasn't been too bad to date. It's something that's been manageable and we can accommodate. However, we think it's probably at a point where as things recover, that part of it is we don't want to let people get so far behind that it becomes really hard to reconcile the bill.
I suppose it's hard to distinguish between hardship and abuse too. Be nice if that you could distinguish the reasoning.
Yeah, and that's why we've put in the customer assistance program and the link to all the Arapahoe County programs, because if there is real hardship, there is money out there, and the county has access to those funds that were federal funds, and they're distributing those for exactly this kind of utility issue.
Okay.
Mayor, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I guess that's my question. This kind of a situation can be the one piece that sends someone out on the streets. So it would be nice to get the number of people we think this could, that you're going to end up having to do this with, and then making really sure that we have, my screen just changed. Joe left. Okay. To make sure that we have some kind of services. And I think, the customer assistance is really helpful. But we have providers in our city that could be helpful. It is like, I just came out of a Metro Mayor's Caucus, Housing, Homelessness and Hunger Committee this morning. And this is one of the things that is putting people in the homeless category.
Sure. I think for us, we can actually what we've talked about is actually a direct contact with those people who are behind on their bill, and in that direct contact, making sure that they are aware of the assistance that's available. Again, it's not a huge exposure for us right now, so it's not something that's a driver as much as it's something that a number of utilities have reinstated them, and we're just considering it. And I just wanted to start getting some feedback. And it's probably something that I would anticipate we'd look at doing this maybe more towards the end of the year, and maybe starting off the new year saying, okay, we're going to start 2021 with no moratorium on this. And that gives people a significant amount of time to realize, hey, this is coming, and we can give them several months to be ready for that.
I do think that the personal contact is important. That was going to be my next question, is how are we going to notify people and make sure that they have the resources? I'd be a little careful about doing it around the holidays. So it might be a little better to give a heads up now and say,
right,
January 2022, this is going into effect. What can we do between now and then to make sure this isn't going to send you over the edge? But you're right. It's hard to tell who's gaming the system. I think very few people would do that, but.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the majority of people who are doing it. I think it's a lot of people who are experiencing hardship that maybe haven't recovered from the 15 months that COVID was affecting them. Really, right. The reason why I brought it up tonight was I just wanted to let you know it was out there, and we're starting to. Again, there's no rush on it, but it's something we should eventually put back into place and just get some thoughts on what to look at when we do that. Angela, I see you have your hand up.
So I just wanted to say that we have been notifying people that they are behind on their water bills. That's a practice that we've not stopped, but it's gone from we call it red tagging, where they're getting notification that their water will be shut off, to more blue tagging, where we're notifying them that they are behind on their bill. So when we do actually reinstitute water shutoffs, it's not going to be this big surprise. It will be, people have been being notified that they are behind on their bill. It's just we haven't been doing any shutoffs.
Okay. That's all we have for staff's choice. Chair.
Very good. Well, if there's no other business.
I had a question that I didn't think got asked last week, and I wasn't here. But I was wondering what the timeline is for you guys doing auto pay, so we don't have to go in every month to pay.
So my understanding on this is we had the module on the system for auto pay, and it just wasn't activated. I think this is right. And so I know this is something that Jennifer and I have talked about, and Sarah, I don't know if you have any background on this. It might not be something that you've gotten into yet, but it is something that we are looking at, and we believe that we have in the Paymentus system. They sent out an update that included that ability to do this auto pay. So it's something that's on our radar, and something that we plan to get into place. I think part of the issue that we were looking at was how to convert existing customers that are on more of a that have submitted their check, and you put your voided check, and how to move that over to an online auto pay system. And we haven't worked out those details yet, but it is something that we're working on.
I'll back Caitlin up that the issue is 3 times more important than it used to be. Please don't send me delinquent notices because I'm not used to paying monthly right now. And I feel bad. I'm on the water board. I'm like, I missed it.
We'll up the priority on that one. And then we can put some more information on our website, and we can get it on the Flow It Forward page and things like that, so that there's more, and actually put a billing insert out there to be able to do it. I think you can. So my bill's on auto pay, and I did that by actually filling out the form. I think that the challenge is you have to physically go in, fill out the form, turn it in, and what people are looking for is an online ability to do that, and that's the module that we've figured out is now available.
Is that info being shared then, and how to do that? Is it on the bill? I don't.
I feel like we put a link to it on some of the Flow It Forward information that we provided. Angela?
We do have some information on the frequently asked questions. Let's see, points that we emailed out back in March. So unless that's not working anymore, and it's a website and then a phone number.
Okay.
So we can reshare that very easily.
I'm not worried about myself getting it so much as everybody else in the city. But yeah.
No, it's a good point, and we will we'll definitely dig into it, because any way that we can make it easier for our customers to pay their bill ensures that we continue to receive the revenue for everything that we just talked about tonight.
Yeah. You also obsess less if you don't have to handle it by paper every single time.
That's
At
true.
I
as well.
do. Like, oh, another bill. Oh, another bill. The auto pay is like boom. All right, I got to go to another meeting.
Okay, well, that's it for us, and thank you very much for all the input tonight. We appreciate it. And so, Vice Chair, it's back to you.
We can now officiate unless anyone has anything else they want to talk about. Call this meeting to an end. We don't have to vote on that, do we? No.
Nope.
It's over, guys. It's over.
All right. Good night, everybody.
August 10th.
Good night. August 10th.
Good night.
Good night.